Welcome to the Killer Innovation Show, the longest continuously produced podcast in history. Each week, Phil McKinney brings you the insights and strategies to amplify your creativity and innovation skills. Here's your host, Phil McKinney.
The best decision makers aren't better at deciding. They're better at controlling when, where, and how they decide. And it took me 20 years to figure this out. Now, most people spend that time trying harder. Oh, we'll get more discipline, more willpower, more resolve to think clearly under pressure. Trust me, it doesn't work. That's when mindjacking wins. Not through force, through the door that you left unguarded. The answer isn't trying harder. It's building systems that protect your thinking when the pressure hits. By the end of this episode, you will have 4 concrete strategies for doing exactly that, and a one-page system that I use that you're actually going to build while we're in this episode so that you can protect your thinking on the long term. And I have something else to share at the very end, something that I've been working on for 20 years. You want to hang around for that, but let's get into it. Now, we all know the Ulysses story. Ulysses knew his ship would pass the island of the Sirens. He also knew that the song was irresistible. Sailors who heard it became incapacitated and drove straight into the rocks. He didn't try to be stronger. He had his crew fill their ears with wax so they could not hear it and tie him to the mast, with strict orders not to release him, no matter what he said when the music reached him. His calm, self-setting rules for his compromised self. He did it before he was tempted. That's the core of everything in this episode. Now, these are called commitment devices. The decision gets made early when your thinking is clear, before you're tempted to take the wrong path. Studies tracking self-imposed contracts found that when people added meaningful stakes to their commitments, their follow-through nearly doubled. Not because they became more virtuous, but because they've taken the choice off the table at the moment that they were most likely to get it wrong. And that's what we're going to show, how to do that with your thinking skills. You need to stop asking, how do I resist making bad decisions, and start asking, what can I decide now so I don't have to decide under pressure? Before you can build the right commitments, you need to know exactly where your thinking breaks down. Not decision-making in general or some theory. Your thinking. How do you think? We're all different. So you got to find your personal vulnerability. So think back across the last few months. Where did your thinking most clearly cost you? Where would you go back and wish you had another shot to change it? Some cases, people stall. They want to keep researching a past point or useful information using, I need more data as cover to avoiding a commitment they know they need to make. Others make their worst calls at the end of the long days, saying yes when they mean no because no requires energy they just don't have. Some get caught by urgency. A deadline appears, the pressure closes off their thinking, and they move fast. Only later do they discover that the deadline was manufactured by somebody to get them to make a rush decision. Others walk into a room with clear position and then walk out agreeing with the loudest voices, unable to explain exactly when their thinking shifted. And some defend decisions way past the point where the evidence says stop, because stopping would mean admitting something about themselves they're not ready to face. Now, of these, which are yours? Identify yours. Write it down before we go any further. We're going to come back to this. What of these are the ones that you find yourself getting trapped in? For me, it's making decisions late in the day. Now, in your case, your primary vulnerability is a design target, not a character flaw. You can't build around something you haven't named. So, what are the 4 strategies for protecting your judgment going forward. Strategy number 1, control when you decide. Every morning, I put on the same thing: black golf shirt, blue jeans, and my cowboy boots. It hasn't changed for decades. Same exact wardrobe. Same brands, same routine, no decisions on my part. My wife tolerates it, barely. Now I've stopped apologizing for it. It's not a fashion statement, it's a cognitive load choice. Your brain has a finite amount of decision making capacity each day. Every trivial choice draws from the same reserve you need for the decisions that actually matter: what to wear, what to eat, which route to take. Eliminating these choices doesn't just save time, it protects the mental fuel you're going to need later when you're making critical decisions. Decision making capacity is not flat across the entire day. It peaks early when you're rested and fresh. It degrades measurably as the conditions erode. The same call made at 8 a.m. and at the end of your 7th consecutive meeting are not equivalent. Same person, different machine. Put up your calendar for the last 2 weeks. Look at when your biggest decisions actually happened. For most people, it's not in a calm moment with a clear head. It's in the hallway, on a rushed call, in the last 15 minutes of a meeting that's run over. That's not bad luck. That's the default you haven't changed yet. Write a standing rule: no significant hard reverse commitments after a certain hour or after a certain number of back-to-back meetings without mandatory pause. Hold it like policy, not preference, because preferences are exactly what disappear when the conditions matter most. Strategy number 2, build your kitchen cabinet. One of the things I credit most for whatever success I've had in my career isn't some magic framework or a magic methodology. It's 4 people. I call them my kitchen cabinet. They've seen my best decisions and they've seen my worst ones. They know when I'm rationalizing. They know when I'm avoiding. And they are not afraid to call me out when I'm off track. Here's what surprises most people when I describe them: they're not senior executives. They're not C-levels. They're not peers from inside my industry or even inside my company. They've never worked for an organization that I've worked for while they've been on my kitchen cabinet. They're a deliberate mix. Different backgrounds, different areas of expertise, different ways of seeing the world. One of them has been in my kitchen cabinet for nearly 30 years. I trust them completely, and everything we discuss stays between us. That independence is the whole point. The people inside your organization have something at stake in your decision. Your peers have their own agendas, even when they don't mean to. Your boss has a preferred outcome. None of them makes them bad advisors. It just means they can't give you the one thing you need most when decisions get hard: a perspective when no skin is in the game. Your kitchen cabinet can, because they have nothing to gain or lose from what you decide. They can ask the question everyone else in the room is avoiding. They can tell you what you do not want to hear, and they'll do it before you're committed, when it still matters, not after the fact of "I told you so," when all they and anybody else can do is sit back and watch. Build your kitchen cabinet deliberately. 4 to 6 people is enough. Prioritize independence over seniority. Look for people who will push back, who will give you feedback honestly, not people who will reassure, not yes people. And make the relationships reciprocal. You show up for their decisions too. The cabinet only works if the trust runs both ways and the conversations stay private. You don't need them for every decision. You need them for the ones where you are most at risk of fooling yourself. Strategy number 3, write your position before the room fills up. I've sat in enough rooms where I've walked in with clear position and walked out having said almost none of it. Not because I was wrong, but because by the time the most senior voice spoke and the head started nodding, my own analysis felt less certain than it did 20 minutes earlier. The brain doesn't just nudge your answer when social pressure arrives. It rewrites, it changes your perception. What you saw before entering the room changes to match what the room already believes. Before you're consciously registered that pressure, before any consequential group decision, write down where you stand. 3 sentences: what you believe, what evidence supports it, and what would genuinely change your mind. A note on your phone is enough. It doesn't need to be formal. It needs to be external, because your memory will quietly revise itself once the social pressure is on. Don't think, okay, I've walked through this and I agree and have it in your head. Write it down. Put it on your phone, or print it out on a piece of paper, whatever works for you. Those 3 sentences are a record of what you actually concluded before the room had a chance to work on you. And when the discussion moves towards a position, you can then distinguish between I'm updating because I heard something new, and I'm caving because the silence is uncomfortable. Without that record, those 2 experiences feel identical in the moment, and one of them will reliably win. You will fold to conform to the room. We all do. Strategy number 4, assume the failure before you commit. Let me tell you a little story. We've all heard it. It was in the news. Back in August of 2016, Delta Airlines ran a routine scheduled test on the backup generator at their Atlanta data center. I'm a former CIO at a publicly traded company. We've all done this. Test your infrastructure, test your network. In this case, test a backup generator at the data center. No big deal, run it. However, what happened in this case during the test, talk about a calamity of errors, a transformer caught fire. 300 of Delta's 7,000 servers improperly connected to a single power source through that transformer went dark. They couldn't fail over to backups. The servers that stayed online couldn't communicate with the ones that hadn't gone down. The entire system collapsed. Passenger check-in, baggage, websites, kiosks, airport displays, gone. Delta ended up having to cancel 2,100 flights over 3 days. $150 million in losses. Thousands of passengers had to sleep on airport floors. The system had redundancy designed in. The backup had been tested, but this specific failure mode, servers with no alternate power connection, was a known vulnerability that nobody had ever stopped to question. A year before the fire, cognitive psychologist Gary Klein, the researcher who developed the pre-mortem, had written a thought experiment describing almost this exact scenario. Just imagine, he wrote that an airline CEO gathered top management and asked, every one of our flights around the world have been canceled for 2 straight days. Why? People would think terrorism first. The real progress, Klein said, would come from mundane answers. A reservation system down, a backup that didn't activate, a cascade nobody had traced in evidence. Think about it. Delta had built what Klein described. Klein was doing it as a thought experiment, and it really happened to Delta. He did it a year before the Delta failure. Without running that question, they would have found it. The pre-mortem is that question. Before you commit to a significant decision, assume it's 6 months later and the decision failed. Not possibly, but definitely. Then ask, what went wrong? What did you know but not say? What did someone sense but find too awkward to raise in the room? What could go wrong produces hedged answers. When you're sitting here and you're looking forward and you're projecting, you're hedging. Could be this, could be that. People soften concerns to preserve harmony. Instead, you word it as you're there 6 months and you're looking backwards. It failed. What happened? It changes the psychology entirely. And that's what the pre-mortem is all about. You're not being negative, you're being forensic. The things that surfaced, the concerns that felt impolite, the risk that seemed too small to mention are frequently the ones that end up mattering most. Now, we've gone through these 4 strategies. Each of these 4 strategies is designed defense against the same thing, the systematic capture of your judgment before you notice it happening. That is mindjacking. And now you've got 4 ways to make it harder. But strategies only work if you remember to use them. Trust me, you will not remember. Not when you're depleted at 7 p.m., not when the room is staring at you, not when your identity is on the line. Now, that's not a character flaw. That's just how it works. It works for all of us. Nobody's got a magic superpower to resist this. So what we're going to do is we're going to take everything we just learned and put it onto one page. This one page you will sign. A page you'll keep somewhere where you'll actually see it. Tack it on your wall, put it, open it up in your journal every day, wherever it is. It's a page you want to put it where you can see it. This is where your calm self right now is building your system for future self. And believe me, you will thank yourself for doing this. Now, the people who shape outcomes consistently aren't necessarily the sharpest thinkers in the room, but they're the ones whose judgment is still intact when everybody else's has degraded. That's a practice. That's using a system, not inherent talent. Now, the full video and the written deep dive, if you want to learn more about this whole stealing of your thoughts and mindjacking, it's in the link below, and you can check that out. Now, let's look back. Remember that Ulysses insight from the beginning of this episode? Your calm, self-setting rules for your compromised self? That's exactly what we're going to do. A decision constitution is 1 page, 5 commitments written when your thinking is clear. So the version of you under pressure has something to stand on. Not a to-do list, not a productivity hack, a contract with yourself. Here's what goes into it. First up, your timing rule. You already know that your judgment degrades as the day runs long. So name it. What are the specific conditions? The time of day, the number of back-to-back meetings, the hours of sleep you got the night before that will disqualify you from making a high-stakes, hard-to-reverse call without a mandatory pause first. Write that down, describe it, and hold it like a policy, not a practice, or we should hold it as a policy. Next up, your pre-decision list. Think of the situations where you consistently make choices you later regret. Late day requests you said yes to when you meant no. The urgency that overrides your better judgment. Go back through the list, pick 3. Write standing rules for each. Specific enough that you can invoke it without having to think. Such as, I don't make new commitments without sleeping on it. That's a rule. I'll try to be more careful. That is not, and you will fold. Next, your pre-meeting anchor. Commit that you're going to, before you go into a meeting with a critical decision, you're going to write down where you stand. 3 sentences, what you believe, what evidence supports it, and what would genuinely change your mind. Not in the car on the way, before. That record is what protects your thinking from the room. Next, your pre-mortem trigger. Name the threshold that makes a decision significant enough to require a pre-mortem. Is it a dollar amount? So if this project's more than $1 million, an impact on more than a certain number of people, this is going to affect 30% of the company, a commitment lasting longer than 6 months, whatever your threshold is, write it down. Once a decision crosses it, the pre-mortem is not negotiable. Next up is the kitchen cabinet trigger. When do you call them? Your cabinet is only useful if you engage them before you decide, not after. So name the conditions that require you to bring a decision to them first. a decision that's hard to reverse, a situation where you have significant personal stakes in the outcome, a moment where you notice everyone around you wants you to decide a certain way, a decision you find yourself avoiding and avoiding thinking clearly about. You want to engage your cabinet. Any one of these should be enough. 2 or more, it's not negotiable. Now print out your decision constitution. You've laid out all these conditions. When do you do a premortem? When do you engage your kitchen cabinet, etc.? Write it down. Print out your decision constitution. Sign it. Literally take pen, sign it. That is that commitment. And put it somewhere you'll actually see it before the moment that it counts. Put it on your wall, put it in front of your journal, wherever you want to put it. This is your Ulysses contract. Your clear-headed self right now is setting the terms your compromised self will have to honor when the pressure is real. And the easy path is pointing the wrong way. So hopefully you find this helpful. Put together your constitution. You will find it immensely beneficial to refer back to it. Now, as we wrap up this episode, that's part 2 of the Thinking 101 series. We've done 15 episodes in the Thinking 101 series. And if you've been here from the beginning, you've been building your thinking toolbox. If you haven't, go back. You can listen to them all. It's in the playlist. Link is below. Now, this series has been running for 21 weeks. The show behind it has been running for now 20 years. And how we got here traces back to a single conversation. More than 20 years ago, a mentor of mine, Bob Davis, gave me a challenge I could not ignore. I couldn't shake off. I asked him how I could ever repay him for what he's done for my career. And the investment he made in me early in my career, the impact it had is immeasurable. Now, he laughed and said, there's no way I could pay him back. The only option, he said, was for me to pay it forward, share what I had learned over my career with others. That's why this show exists. And that's why it has always existed. If you've been around the show for a long time, you've heard me talk about this in the past. Now, the show, I named it Killer Innovations because that's what it felt right in 2005. Bold, a little provocative, built for a moment when podcasting was brand new and nobody knew what it was supposed to be. Now, tens of millions of downloads later, we're still here. We have regular listeners in more than 50 countries. We've become much more focused on the YouTube channel side of this, and the subscriber and listening growth has grown to levels I would never have anticipated, even within the last couple of years. Some of you are even younger than the podcast itself and have reached out and dropped notes and asked for advice. But somewhere along the way, the show became something more specific. It stopped being about innovation tips and started being about thinking skills and the innovation decisions that actually shape outcomes. How do you make better innovation decisions? Through better thinking, better understanding, and making the call. It's about the patterns underneath the decisions. It's about the skill that is most needed when the pressure is real. A skill that everybody wants, but it has not been one that has been shared broadly. On March 23rd, the show's 20th anniversary, we are going to be making some major changes. We will be making changes with the podcast, the YouTube channel, all of it. And if you've been around for a while or you have thoughts about where we've been, you've got some great stories. Some of you have been here for the whole 20 years, or where we're going. You've got your own ideas and want to provide that as input. I want to hear them. There's a contact form over at philmckinney.com, or if you get the newsletter emailed to you, all you need to do is hit reply and it comes right back to me. Send me a note, let me know. And otherwise, I will see you on the 23rd with that announcement, as we will be taking next week off to prepare. So the 23rd is the announcement. No show next week, but we'll talk to you soon. Catch you later. Bye-bye.
Podcasting nonstop since 2005, this has been the Killer Innovation Show on the Innovators Network.